for business and etiquette, like the different ways people communicate. Like there's verbal, written, and also contextual. Like 5 different ways. That I explain further so you can maybe help us in this area.
Okay.
So sorry, I think just don't need the record.
Huh?
So okay, normally in your daily life and your business, normally who do you communicate with the most? Like
The managers.
okay, so
Okay. Let's say I have manager look after the accounting part. Okay. I have managers. I have a general manager in China looking over the business. So and then in the China, there are managers under the general manager. I also communicate with them.
okay.
That's all. Yeah.
So,
So occasionally I communicate with customers
okay.
if there are special needs. Let's say special business, special things coming up like delivery, like pricing issues. Then they will talk to me. If normally they will go and talk to the GM in China.
Okay. So so at home, do you also who do you communicate with at home? Like
At home, my home,
yeah.
my family members and my maid.
Okay. So normally how do you like communicate with people? Are you like how do you describe your communication style? Like
Okay, wow. I think I'm quite a detailed person. Okay. Usually how I communicate is, I will tell people what or exchange information.
yeah.
Okay. So I think on very special information communication, then I will make sure that I repeat. Someone requests me to do certain things, I will repeat to them that, okay, am I right to do it this way, right?
Yeah.
So if I give instructions to my staff, okay, work-wise, the best thing is on important issues, put it black and white.
Okay.
Email is very important to us,
Okay.
right? And then, of course, sometimes for the staff that are a little bit junior, then when I give some instruction, I ask them that, can you please tell me what should you do? Then they will tell me. So from there, I know whether they have misunderstood
Okay.
the message I gave them or not.
Okay. So you are very detailed. This business.
Well, I think in business, if you cannot afford
Okay.
to get wrong because of communication.
Okay, thanks. So I'll move on to there's 5 communication styles. So like in business wise, I want to know like how it's like done. So
Like,
the first style we want to go through is verbal communication. So you already know it involves speaking and listening and
Yes.
also using phones. So most of the time in like China or Hong Kong, what are the most common language used for business?
Chinese.
Chinese. So English
Yes.
is not really.
Well, English is when you come to the industry terminology, then we use English because we make sure that we're talking about the same thing.
Okay.
Right? You know what is the industry terminologies?
Yeah. The terms. Yeah.
Yeah. So we use English. It's easiest is we use Mandarin
Okay.
in China, and then we use
Dialect.
Cantonese in Hong Kong.
So like normally when you have meetings in China or Hong Kong, what's the like normal speed of speech? Like I know like Chinese normally they speak very fast. So is it
I think Hong Kong and China are much faster than Singapore. We
Okay.
have to talk.
So you all talk very fast, but at the same time.
China is also very loud.
Okay. So it's loud and fast,
Fast.
but you all still understand what it's being.
Yeah. We have to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Given time, you will get used to it.
So normally the tone that you all use for business meeting is like, is it like serious or do you all how do you?
It depends on the occasion.
Okay.
Okay. If we have a serious talk, okay, so we have to conduct it in a more formal manner. Okay. So if it's a less serious talk, then it can be a much, informal manner. But in whatever the case, it got to be conducted in a very friendly atmosphere.
Okay.
If you want to get message across, the first thing is you got to be friendly. If you're not friendly, you start with why and how, and then people already shut off. They won't listen.
Yeah, true. Okay, so is there any other important areas for verbal communication that you want to add in?
Well, I would say that for any verbal communication, unless it's a very casual talk, if it's a business talk, it will be much better that after the meeting, we should go back and send the other party or those participants in the meeting a short recap of what have been discussed, what have been agreed, and what is the next action. So as everybody know what has been discussed. Otherwise, everybody may have their own understanding in their own way.
All right. So we move on to the next point, which is written communication. So we already know it's like emails, writing, and maybe fax. So
email, WhatsApp, fax.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So how important do you think this documentation in business and in your culture, as in Hong Kong and China, how important is it?
Oh yeah, well I think it's really very important because as time goes by, people may forget what they say or forget what they have committed or forget what the original idea of doing something. So to keep people thinking of track, the best is we all talking about the same thing, is we have the written record.
Yeah.
Or if there is a business communication, people promise you something or you promise people something, it's better to be record that.
Yeah,
so the people under you know how to execute the instruction, the action later on. Yeah. So I think written record is very important. Not even just in China or in Hong Kong, even in everywhere of the world. Yeah, it's very important to have written records.
So if I ask you to compare written and verbal, which one do you think is the most important?
Well, I think, for normal casual talks, to get atmosphere good, to boost up morale, talking is fine.
Okay.
But when it comes to a firm commitment, then better to have it black and white.
Okay. So do you think people should email to correspond with one another or meet face to face for business?
I think we need both. Email can be a daily frequent basis. Physically you won't be able to meet people on a daily basis unless you are co-workers. But then you still need to see each other to understand better. And sometimes informal gatherings, go out together for a cup of coffee, or drink, or dinner, or lunch, that make you understand the person, the other part of thinking. You understand the person better. Make things easier to move on.
Personal relations.
Yeah.
So so you think it's okay to use the SMS for business,
We use a lot of SMS and WhatsApp actually, because let's say you are talking to me, right? If someone urgent, they call me, that will disturb our conversation, right? But if someone just WhatsApp me, then while talking to you, I still can slowly WhatsApp back some answer, right? So you can run parallel.
So normally it's used for not so important things.
Yes, If it's important, we will still follow up with an email to confirm everything.
And so is there any other important areas to note when it comes to documentation, in maybe Hong Kong or China? Because you're maybe do in Chinese. You're doing in Chinese or English?
Well, depends. If to China only, then we are in Chinese.
Okay.
But if we involved more Singaporean, then we use in English because not all Singapore staff they understand Chinese.
Yeah. Okay. So is there anything like people should avoid when it comes to written stuff like in business emails or written?
Well, I think you try not to. Okay, in a conversation, you can be very blunt, right? You can be very offensive sometimes.
Yeah.
At a point of anger or what, but it's not advisable writing it black and white that you are scolding someone, you're cursing someone, or being impolite. You know, it's always better to write it in a professional manner. You can express your idea of happiness, dissatisfaction, but don't put it black and white that is scolding somebody.
Okay. Alright, so so the third area is contextual. This one I explain a bit first. So
Okay.
In comparison to like verbal and written communication, contextual communication is a bit different. Because in some countries, in order to communicate successfully, you have to consider the cultural differences and in the individualistic and collectivistic cultures. So I'll explain more later. We already know, because China we will put them as a collectivistic culture, because it's more to group affiliation, because they involve more focus as a group than individual. So like, do you agree that it's
I don't really get what you mean. You mean China will communicate more with a group rather than a person?
It's more like group focus than individual focus. Like just say like okay. Okay. Can I explain? Context, like this contextual communication, like have to do how much individual has to know about certain area, like or about culture before we can communicate efficiently. Like because like different cultures, you might
the cultural differences.
Yeah, so how you approach to communicating like with these cultural differences. So like normally westernized nations are more like individualistic. So they are more focused like on individuals. They work like more alone. But for like Asian cultures, they work as a group. They put the group ahead of.
Okay, I get what you mean.
Yes.
Well, I think it's boiled down to their culture and traditions.
Okay.
Right? When we as Singaporean, we go to China to do business, or we go to Hong Kong, or we go to Europe, right? When we go to other people's places, we have to abide other people's law. Okay. Just like people come and visit us in Singapore, they have to abide our law. So when we go there to do work, to do business, we have to follow in somehow their traditions and their habits. So that, I think that is what you mean.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah,
right.
correct.
So of course it will be much easier for us to understand their habit, their tradition, and as much as possible, try to meet on this part. If you understand, you try to avoid certain things, like say, for example, China, if they have year end, they have lots of wedding going on, so it will be a very much Chinese tradition that if you are invited, you better go. But in Singapore, if you are invited, you are not very close to them. Only a normal business associate. You can go or not go, up to you, right?
Yeah.
You have time, you go. You don't have time, you don't go.
Yeah.
Right? So no one say anything. But in China, if they invite you, and then they find out that you are not going, they think you are not respected. And next time, if you have anything you want the fellow to do for you, it can be kind of difficult. So is that what you mean?
Yeah,
this is, we have to respect their customs, their traditions. So we try to understand as much. Let's say, and then of course we have to understand a little bit of the geography, Because even China is a very big country.
Yeah.
So, south, north, east, western part of Chinese, they have different habits. There are different traditions in some house. So we will have to understand where these persons come from. And then, of course, each company has their own culture. That if we want to work with them, we have to a little bit understanding of this part. Let's say, for example, we have a Singaporean, Singapore Chinese.
Yeah.
Okay, he was sent to China to work for a few years. He cannot understand Chinese at all. He cannot read, So at the beginning, he did make some mistakes. And then he found out that he got no friends. Because, he still like his hamburger, he still like his Kentucky Fried Chicken, he doesn't like the Chinese noodles, So he found out he has no friends. So then, so when he talked, because why he got no friends? When he talked with the Chinese out of business, there's no conversation. Because they're all talking about different habits and different traditions. He can't understand what the Chinese was talking about.
Yeah.
So in a way, he distanced himself. So, he bothered to buy a storybook. The Chinese, actually, they're based on a few storybooks. I don't know how much you know about Chinese, 水浒传.
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 Okay.
Okay, he go and bother to buy this, but he cannot understand the normal 水浒传. Okay, so he bought the children's portion edition. He bought the children's one and he read it through. And then he go to buy like Hong Nao Mong, all this. He bought the children's version. So even in a very simple way, he know what people are talking about. And then he start to mix around with the Chinese. And he won't get himself bored. And then he find himself got friends. So that is very important. Yeah. Okay. So when you talk to the Chinese, even in business, they will find you that, you come from Singapore and you know our tradition, you know our story. Then they will find you are more friendly. Yeah.
Okay, so then now I said that like UK, US, they are more of a individualistic culture. So
it's the character. I think it's they at the end of the day, they are still very much bound to their company. They still have to be very loyal to the company, and on everything they set priority is how the company will be benefited, rather than in their personal idea. They might be idealistic, but I think everybody still put the job or the organization they represent as more important.
Okay, so this is what I read online that like for China, like when it comes to meetings, they like the place focus on efficiency of information, workflow, and in privacy. So they always discuss everything in advance and consider like meetings an official ceremony to already disclose the already commonly agreed decision that they already make. So,
well, put it this way, they just like have many more meetings behind the scene. So the final meeting, what do you call meeting? Actually, it's just like the conclusion.
Just to tell everyone.
Yeah. So behind, they have many small meetings.
Yes.
I think in the Western, this also happening, but not in that quite manner, because most is the boss won't get involved so much, because the boss will just tell their staff that, okay, this is my direction. So they let the other party has their own direction. So let the two teams talk. Finally, they come to their agreement. Then the boss see each other and sit down and formal. And which this is quite normal. In the West, they doing the same thing, but not as up to that degree. But still, they have to be internally agreed on certain topics. So to make sure that, let's say, if you have a team of 3 to meet with the other company, a team of 3. Mm-hmm. So first of all, the 3 of you got to be in one tone, and the other 3 in one tone. So on the table there will be 2. They're talking about 2, and then how to get into consensus, right? Yeah. But this three has three different ideas. And even this from China got one idea because they have been meetings before. And the other three got three different ideas. Then you will never be able to come to any conclusion. Then the Chinese will tell you, can you please go home and get yourself agree on one thing before we sit again. Correct or not?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so it's just like the Chinese are more exaggerate on this part. In actual fact is, when you go and meet somebody else as a team, you better agree it before you go and confront it with a third party.
Yeah,
that the view of you is in one voice.
Then, so you would disagree that, because I read online that like for Western nations it's like the complete opposite, that like the boss will just come to the meeting, then they'll tell them everything on that meeting itself, like what the decision is and all the important information only on that one meeting, like compared to maybe like China or Hong Kong, like they have, as you said, they have like previous meetings, then the final meeting will just come up with the decision.
Well, in the West, what you say is true for an internal meeting.
Yeah.
Okay? For an external meeting, that means you meet with somebody in third company, a second company, they still have got to get a consensus. Okay?
Yeah.
Right. In Chinese, then it might be slightly different because they were just being told what to do. They will argue, but not up to the extent internal meeting. Let's say the boss will say that, okay, I do this. Then the staff, some of them they agree, some of them might not agree. They will just express, but you see their boss is very firm, they will just quietly leave, and then they may do something else, right? But in the West, is the boss will go and let's discuss. But when they go face third party, they still have to be in one voice.
Yeah, correct.
So it depends on internal and external meetings.
Okay, can. So okay, one last thing, as in, like you already know there's two differences like Western and like when you do business with, like, let's say US or Hong Kong, like let's say you have a meeting, are there any like problems that will arise because of these cultural differences?
Well, yes, when I was very young, but not now.
Okay, so
yeah.
Can you like just share a bit about?
Wow. Okay, it's a very, very funny story. You know, let's say the Americans are very straightforward.
Yeah.
And they're very demanding. Okay, I remember there's quite some years back. You know, I was summoned to see a buyer in New York. Okay, of course we have some delivery issue. That means our orders were late. So I sit just off plane. I go to the customer's office, sit into the conference table. And the customer was very angry with me, and he just like at the table tell me that I don't care, you know how you make it. If not, you will have compensation. Blah 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 blah. Then of course I just off the plane was like, why so fierce? You know, I was like freaked out. You know, why so fierce? So I just tell them, okay, I still manage it. I said, okay, you know, let me study with my factories, and I get back to you the next day. So then, of course, I'm very frustrated, you know, and a bit mad because I was just sit down and get scolded. So when I pack my files and when I leave the conference room, and this customer suddenly come and pat on my shoulders, and he told me, hi, you know, nice to see you here. How about we go have a drink and then we have dinner together? It was like, what happened? But this is cultural differences.
Okay.
Right? Correct? No, because to them, business is business. On the business point of view, they fight for their company because they think we have failed their delivery. But on my point, I represent the company. I was told to discuss and iron out the problems. They didn't tell me that you come and let's scold you. Right? So that is the differences. But, you know, in Singapore, you will hardly see this kind of situation, right? You know, the laugh and take situation.
Yeah.
So they were outside, they were just, hey, you know, honey, are we going to have dinner later on? You know, I drive you back. You know, let's have a drink, and I'll pick you up again for dinner. You know, so that's the cultural differences. But you know, getting used to it. So there's something that you know you won't be able to study in a book in school, but that's reality.
Yeah.
To be honestly.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just move on to the second last point. It's about formality. Part of communication. It's I think it's a requirement of a custom, etiquette, or established method to act in certain situations. So normally when it comes to business, how formal is the business correspondence? Like when it comes to written, like how formal do you normally put things?
Well, when you come to contractual agreements, then it has to be formal. Okay? Contractual agreements. You know what is a contractual agreement?
Yeah, when there's really...
It is a long-term commitment, you know, it's a certain amount of dollar value investment, then it got to be formal. You know?
So normally when you have meetings, how formal do you think they are? As in, normally is it very strict, or do you normally like have normal chit chat? Is there like chit chatting, or is there?
Well, I don't think in a meeting we are chit chatting. It's normally we will have just to discuss. So if we have some serious issues, then we will have to just like come up with an agenda before the meeting. That okay, what is the agenda? No agenda, why call for a meeting? You must have an agenda, right? So we discuss things through. So if we all know each other well, then you know in between there will be like moments, making some jokes at the beginning of the meeting, or towards the end of the meeting, or during the break time, coffee time. You know, so we won't be just like black face and pull our long face and discuss through everything. You know.
So this includes like China, like
Yeah.
Okay.
They are the same.
Okay.
You know, but the thing is, mind you, Chinese, like most of the serious meetings, we will have a pre-meeting usually. Let's say we might have a lunch gathering, or a dinner gathering, or even for tea or coffee, that you know we will see each other first to get some dialogues. To kind of like test water, you know, other parties' intention on the idea, and then before we sit down for a formal meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is quite common in China.
So in China, like, how do people address one another by their? Is there anything like?
It's the same here. Yeah, except that when they are not knowing you very well, they like to address people by their title.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's say if I'm Chang, right?
Yeah.
So I'm the director of the company. So they will call me Chen Dong.
Okay.
Chen Zhong, or GM is Chen Zhong.
Oh, okay.
They usually, maybe their manager, then they will call them, let's say, Huang Jingli.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they like to address, if they're not so familiar with each other. If they're familiar with each other, then they will call them by the surname only, or their English name.
Okay.
No, most of the Chinese, they say English name.
Yeah. So like before a meeting, how do you all like greet one another? Like both?
Well, we will have to, first of all, over telephone or email, we have to address something. And then since it can be complicated, or we get more than just the two person involved, and it's better to get each of their team sit together. So before that, we will just like have to meet for tea or dinner and talk about their idea, and of course we will have to tell them that, what is our intention.
Okay.
So if that say, okay, in general, that the intention are pretty match, then we can call for a meeting together.
Okay, so do you all shake hands, or do you all bow, or normally?
We don't bow, we shake hands.
Okay.
Japanese bow, Chinese don't bow, unless you visit very senior officials of the government.
Okay.
Otherwise, no, we just shake hands.
Okay, so the last point will be non-verbal communication, also known as like maybe body language. So we know that in like different cultures and different situations, different gestures or actions might mean different things or might offend people. So in the case of China, like for like disagreement, how do people normally show it? Like,
disagreement?
Yeah, like normally when people disagree with something, like do they do any like body actions? Like,
well, they will just shake their head and then wave their hands. No. Put on. Yeah, they will just, it's quite normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then for agreement, like if they agree but they don't say anything, normally how would they?
They smile, nod their heads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then like for, let's say unlike Western cultures, eye contact can be, is it important in?
Yeah. You must look at other people when you talk. Yeah, you have to. It's the same. Actually, it's the same. Yeah.
So then for do Chinese like normally do a lot of hand gestures to like express things?
Yes, they are.
Like do you have any examples?
To me, I don't see that big differences.
So it's
honestly, it's just the same.
So you can say like China becoming more westernized.
Well, yes, but I think body language, is all along it has been there, right? You can tell at people whether he's happy, he's not happy, he's thinking, No, it's only the Asian Chinese that they just keep quiet and smile. I think there's no longer this case now. Yeah.
So they are more open now.
They are more open now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there anything like for this non-verbal would you like to mention that I left out? Is there anything else?
Wow. I noticed the only differences is that Asians. Actually, not just China. Is if a male and a female, even they agree with each other, they're very happy. The most is they will shake hands, right? But in Western, they will hug. But in China, there will be no hug.
Okay, so
other than shake hands, and that's all. Yeah. The Westerns, they will pat you on the shoulder, right?
Yeah.
They will, give you a welcome kiss, and no such things in China.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's about it for the interview.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Do you get what you want?
Yeah.
You will be able to write your report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So if you have anything, just let me know.
Okay.
Hope you do a good job with your work.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you.